In this presentation, we'll discuss the process of setting up the bank feeds within Xero accounting software. Here we go with Xero. Here we are in our G company dashboard. We're going to be looking at the bank feed options. So to do so, we're going to go to the accounting tab dropdown, and I'm going to go to the banks up top. So I can find it here. You can also go to the dashboard, by the way, before I click on that. You could go down to the banking information as well on the dashboard. So there could be a couple ways to go in there and add an account down below. I'm going to do so from the drop down, however. So we're going to go to the accounting up top. We're going to go to the bank accounts. Now, setting up the bank accounts and setting up the bank feeds is a fairly straightforward process. You can watch through the presentation video they have here for the setup process. Then we're simply going to add an account down here and go through the connection process as we set it up to the bank. If you have a large institutions, most large banks, the setup process will be fairly straightforward. You can also set up, remember, both bank accounts and credit card accounts. So we could also have the credit card accounts be feeding through if we're working with large institutions as well. As you set up the bank feeds, there are a few things that you want to keep in mind to remember. One is, how much of the banking information do you want to have into the system? In other words, do you already have banking information into the system? In which case, when do you want to set up the bank feeds as of? You want to make sure that you set up the cutoff date for the bank feed so that you do not have duplicate information. The second item is, how much do you want in terms of how far back in time do you want to go? Because oftentimes there's going to be a limit up to 3 months or something like that is common to have a limit that you can actually connect to the bank with. So if you're at the end of the year, for example, and you need an entire year's worth of bank feed data that you want to feed into the system and create financial statements with, then you may not be able to get it from just the bank feeds connecting to the bank. You may want to get that information then in another way, then set up the bank feeds basically going forward. And again, you want to think about when that cutoff will be so that you don't have duplicated information and you're not missing information. So if that were the case, how would you deal with that? You would then might go to the institution itself, go to the institution, download the information, which means you might be able to download more information than like a few months of information. You might get a full year possibly of the financial information directly from the bank, which you can then get in a format that you can upload to the Xero here. And we'll talk about that method later. That's actually what we'll do for our practice problem. Note that either method you used, if you connect to the bank, once that information gets into the system, it'll be kind of like, I think of it as kind of like in limbo, right? It's not quite in your financial statements yet. It's into the system ready to be applied out. Then you're going to need to go there and apply it out. So you can have that information feed in directly, and then you go in there and apply it out, or you can upload that information. You can get that information from the bank and then upload it. That's the practice that we will do here, so we can practice with practice data. We'll actually have the data that we're imagining we got from the bank, then we'll upload it so that information would be in there. At that point in time, we'll be at like the same kind of point as if we had the bank feeds, or as if you upload the information, same point at that point. Then we'll go through the process of assigning them out. So either way, first thing we need to do is set up an account. So we're going to add a bank account, and this is going to be our major kind of checking account. So you can add the bank account, you can add the credit card accounts. So we're going to go through the adding the bank account, and then you can pick your vendor. So there's a lot of vendors they have down here, a lot of banks, a lot of financial institutions. So most financial institutions, you should be able to find them unless you're at a fairly small institution. If you're talking about a larger kind of banks, then they should be able to be found in here. I'm going to be typing in Capital One. So I'm going to say Capital One. I'm going to go for the bank and not the credit card. So I'm just going to say First Capital One. I'll pick that one. And this is just going to be our mock test bank account number. Now, I'm not going to be entering the actual feed connecting. I'm gonna take the information and upload it to the system. So this is obviously just mock information. If you were to be connecting to your bank account, then you'd have to be putting in possibly your credentials and your login information in some way, shape, or form, so that your bank can be able to connect to the Xero software. And again, that video at the beginning of this process that Xero provides goes over the different kind of options that different institutions may give you. You may have to fill out a form. You may simply have to enter your credentials into the system. You may have to actually log into your bank account using the online banking as part of the process of verification. So for the name, I'm just going to say it's the checking account for Chase, and I'm just going to give in some numbers. See, this obviously isn't an actual account number. I'm just going to give some numbers to set up this account, and then I'm going to say continue. Then we have the enter your first Capital One details. So we have the access ID and the passcode. Obviously, I don't have those because I'm not going to be linking directly. I want to set up this account and then use the bank feeds by uploading that information to the system rather than having the connection. So if you were doing the connection, you would have to enter your credentials here and say next. What we're gonna do at this point is just cancel out at this point in time, and it should have set up the actual account for us. So there it is down here. So we have the checking account. We see that we have the get the bank feeds. The bank feeds are not set up yet. However, now we have the manually import a statement. And that's what we're going to do in the future. We're going to be manually importing this statement. So we're going to take, in essence, our bank statements, such as the March is the first one we're going to take. We're going to get this information not in terms of a bank statement, but go to the bank and see if they can give us that information. Most institutions will. Pretty much all institutions will have it in some format or another, just in terms of the transaction. So we just want to look at that transaction information. So we're going to get this information in a transactional type format. We'll provide you with this detail that you can upload and practice with as well. And then we'll import that into the system using the manual import feature. And once we have that, we'll be basically at the same point that we would be in if we were to, have the feed automatically from the bank or manually input those transactions. In other words, we'll have the transactions from the bank that will basically be in limbo at that point in time. And we can practice then seeing how we're going to fit those financial transactions into our system, verifying them so they actually have an impact on our financial statement, applying accounts and vendors and customers to them, or matching out those transactions to transactions we already have in the system so that we don't duplicate those transactions. So that's it for now. Let's get out of here.